Well, hey there, it's Catherine from CatherinePooler.com. In this video, we are going to use our July of 2020 Club Cersei products. Cersei subscribers will get these first, and they will get them at a fabulous discount. And then later on, about a month later, they will pop into our shop at regular price, so you can purchase them then. But I wanted to give you just a little preview of them this month, and I also wanted to show you some fun techniques using stamps and die cuts. So whether you have this collection of stamps or not, you're still going to get a lot of great tips from this video. So the first thing we're going to do is take this fabulous flamingo. I love him, and I'm inking him in Coral Cabana and stamping him using my Misty stamping tool. And I'm using my Misty because this is a large stamp, and because stamping is a handcraft, it's not always perfect the first time. So when I use a larger detailed stamp, I do like to use my Misty because then I can stamp it more than once in the same place. And so if I stamp the first time and it's not quite stamped completely, I get a second try. So it's great to have one of those tools. So you can stamp your image and then use what we lovingly call cookie cutter dies to cut your image out just like this. Now on this flamingo, I didn't get him quite cut out perfectly, but that's okay. I can either stamp and die cut again or just go with it, and that's usually what I do. So when I cut out the flamingo, I also cut out all of the other images that were in the set of dies because I like to keep my dies for the most part together like they come, because I think it's a lot easier to just run the whole set of dies through the die cutting machine at once rather than one by one if I had cut them all apart. So images like the pineapple and the tree here, you're going to notice that it's a lot easier to stamp and die cut successfully if you die cut first and then stamp. Because there are two pieces that make up one image, if I stamped it on cardstock and then die cut it, I might not have perfect placement of the top of the pineapple on the bottom of the pineapple, or the tree trunk with that the foliage up on top. So I find it a lot easier just to die cut those pieces and then stamp right on top. And because I'm using clear blocks and photopolymer stamps, you can see through them and you get pretty decent placement. If you're having trouble, just practice. I've been stamping for more than 15 years, so I've had a lot of practice, and you can see I still don't make it perfectly every time. So again, it's a handcraft, and if you can let go of perfection a little bit, you'll be a happy stamper. This stamp set also includes an adorable little watermelon slice. So this is another one that I find easier to stamp or die cut first and then stamp. So I stamped the watermelon in Be Mine and then the rind in Lime Ricky, and I have a cute little accent to add to my hand stamped cards. So you may also have images like this umbrella where it's one stamp, but you may want the two different sections or pieces of the stamp to be colored differently. Now, of course, I could just stamp this whole, the umbrella top and the pole. I could stamp it and all that jazz. But if I want a brown pole, I'm just going to selectively stamp, just tap the edge of that stamp onto my ink pad, only inking the pole, and then doing the same thing with the all that jazz. Because you have the clear photopolymer stamps and clear blocks, it's easy to see through and make sure you're only inking the parts that you want. And you can see when I ink, sometimes I get ink in other or too far onto another image, and then I can just take my finger and kind of wipe off that excess ink. Now for the next two images, I want some multicolored inking on these. So the coconut I'm going to add over coffee, which is a light brown, and then I'm just going to dab the side of the coconut in a darker brown, icing on the cake, and I'm going to get shading, so it's going to give it a three-dimensional look, and super fun. So when you do this, sometimes when you dab onto the next color, you might get a harsh line between the two colors. You can take a sponge dauber or any ink blending tool and just buff the harsh line out and blend the two colors together, and you'll get a smoother look. The next image I'm going to stamp is a little sun. Sorry, I went a little bit off screen here, but you can ink this just in one solid color and stamp. If you want some ink blending, you can do the same thing that I did on the coconut, or you can take a sponge dauber. Catherine Pooler ink pads are sponge, like they're a firm foam pad. So the foam is going to release ink really easily, and that's why you get such a great stamped image from them. But the sponge dauber is also made out of foam. So since our foam pads release ink really well, and then they're going to release ink to that sponge dauber, and then you're going to get a really nice inked sponge dauber, and then you can use that kind of as your little ink pad. So a little tip there. Another way to use the sponge daubers is just to go ink blending directly onto a die cut. This is a little hibiscus die cut, and this is a spoiler alert for Club Cersei subscribers that have not received their Cersei yet. You get this cute little hibiscus flower. It does not have a coordinating stamp, but look at how gorgeous this is when you ink blend right on top of this die cut. So I'm using Samba and Tiara, and Tiara in the middle, Samba around the edges, and then where it blends in the middle, you get this gorgeous orange. And I think this is going to be fantastic on a card. We'll add it in just a little bit. But first, we are going to make our first card. So I'm going to use the sunglasses in this card, and I wanted to make a layer to put them onto. So I have this fun border stamp. Again, it comes in the July 2020 Cersei. And I'm just going to stamp this border on each side of a 4 by 5.5 inch piece of cardstock. That will be my layer. I'm stamping it in Midnight ink, and I'm using my Misty just in case I have a little spot that I missed, but no worries, I can stamp it again. So now I'm all set to add my embellishments and my little accents and my sentiment. So I stamped a bunch of these sunglasses in rainbow. So I did Be Mine, Coral Cabana, Tiara, Lime Ricky, and I think that is Fiesta Blue. And then I'm going to line them up in rainbow order and stamp my sentiment. I'm going to use my Bearly Arts glue to adhere my sunglasses. The Bearly Arts glue comes with a little tip kit, so it has a tip on there that's like a closed tip so you can store your glue. Then there's a wider tip and then a really fine precision tip, and I find it really nice for these small little die cuts. There's also a pin that comes in with your tip kit, and so you can stick the pin into that little precision applicator and don't have to worry about it getting clogged up. It's a really great product. I've been loving it, and it is in our shop. All of the supplies that I used, if you're watching on YouTube, will be linked below. And then over on the blog, I will have still photos of all of this and more information on Club Cersei. So you can stamp on die cuts, you can ink blend on die cuts, you can also emboss on die cuts. So we're going to take this Aloha word die, and we're going to use the Melon Ice Embossing Trio. This was made to coordinate with our Melon Ice ink, and it's with WOW. You can also buy this in our shop. We're going to use the Sorbet Embossing Glitter, and then we're going to use the Ice Pop Sparkles. The Sparkles is a glitter only. There's no embossing powder in there at all. So I'm going to use the Mixed Media Tool by WOW. It's basically embossing fluid in this cute little nail polish-esque bottle. I will brush the embossing fluid onto the die cut. I'm only doing half at once, and then I'm going to pour on the Sorbet embossing glitter and heat it. I didn't get a thick enough coverage on the top of the H there. It's a little not so solid. So the great news is that I can just add this embossing fluid right on there again and cover it with more glitter and heat it. And I have a thicker coverage. It's kind of cool to use your die cuts this way and just do like a couple layers, like 2 or 3. Sometimes I even do more than that, and it gets really nice and thick and almost like an enamel accent. So it's a great technique for using your die cuts, and it just takes your paper crafting projects to another level. So while the embossing glitter was still hot and kind of melty, I took the Ice Pop Sparkles and I just sprinkled on a little bit of that to make it even more sparkly. The Ice Pop, I'm not sure if you could see it well enough, but it has really chunky pieces of glitter in it, and it's so sparkly. So I really wanted this Aloha to be bright melon ice, glittery, and just some really pop pieces of sparkle in there. So I think I achieved that. I love how this looks. So now I'm just going to do the other half, and it's nice because I can hold on to the half that was already done and try not to burn my fingers. And in the end, I'm going to have a gorgeous melon ice, sparkly, glittery Aloha. Next up, I'm going to start working on the card that this Aloha will go on. I want the feel of a beach or some water, so I'm taking a piece of Heffy Doodle memo tape. This is really nice. It's kind of like the tackiness of a Post-it note, so it's not going to tear your cardstock at all when you peel it back. So I'm just going to add it onto the bottom of this piece of cardstock layer. It's 4 by, actually this one might be 3 3/4 by 5. And then I'm going to take my ink blending brush and I'm going to do a really light hand. I'm using All That Jazz ink, which is a pretty dark teal. And I wanted a lighter shade of it, so thus the really light hand. And then peel that memo tape off, and we've got a gorgeous ink blended kind of horizon there. And it looks fantastic with the Aloha sitting there. And then we're going to finish it off with the flamingo and some of those fun die cuts. So I'm just working with placement here. I have foam tape on the back of the flamingo, so he'll pop up. And then I'm going to tuck the sun behind him and some of the leaves. And I feel like this color combination is just perfect for a tropical card. Coral Cabana, Tiara, Lime Ricky, All That Jazz. Feels very fun and tropical and summery. Now once I finish tucking all these fun little die cut images behind the flamingo, I'm going to adhere the Aloha. So using my Bearly Art glue, this precision tip works really nicely with a thin die cut like this. And then a tip for you for getting the word die to dry and lay flat on the card front is to use one of our clear blocks as kind of a paperweight. So just lay that block right over your die cut, let it sit for a minute, and it should be nice and flat and adhere to your card front. And then I wanted to add a layer behind this, a colored layer. So since our ink pads are foam and they release ink so easily, direct to paper method is really easy to do. So just take your ink pad, turn it over, and gently swipe it across your cardstock, and you can see how well the ink lays down. And so now you have instantly matching cardstock to your project. So you know that the cardstock is going to exactly match your stamped images when you use this technique. And you have any color cardstock on hand at any given moment because you can make it yourself. For the next card, we're going to use the hibiscus die cut. And I thought a simple geometric background and a sentiment would be a perfect backdrop for this. I can think of lots of other ways to use this hibiscus, and I can't wait until you guys get this in your hands and start creating and sharing with us online. That is always the favorite part for us, when we see our creative team and our brand ambassadors, and then you guys using the products we worked so hard to create. So we have this geometric border stamp in the July 2020 Circe, and it has these small little images in there. And they were created so that you could stamp them in this geometric grid kind of pattern. And I chose a couple of the patterned diamonds to fill in, and you'll see a couple more of the small stamps on the next card. But this just created a really fun geometric backdrop for that gorgeous hibiscus. I'm going to add it to a piece of black cardstock using some foam tape. Gives it a little dimension and some extra oomph for your card making project. You can see I'm a paper saver here because I used a piece that I had previously die cut some circles out of. I just had it in my stash. Pulled it out, and then this black on this white on black on white looks really great with this hibiscus flower, but I wanted a little bit more pop. So I took my card base. It's an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, cut in half, folded in half. Easy to make card bases that way. We also sell the card bases already scored and cut in our shop to make it easy for you as well, but I just took one of those I used my Coral Cabana ink pad and just swiped it along the edge of the card base, and boom, I have a colored cardstock base, and I think it really pops. A couple Crater Lake sequins is going to polish this off, and that's it for this card. Now, for the final card, I really wanted to take advantage of those small images in the stamp set, so I'm going to create a circle here just using a pencil and one of my circle dies. And I'm going to stamp these small little images inside the circle, so I'm going to fill up that whole circle. The way I do this, I usually just stamp maybe 3 or 4 in one color, spaced out a little bit, and then I move on to my second stamp image with the second color and stamp near the first one. And you notice I'm also turning my stamp as I stamp so that not all of the images are going the same way. And then I do the next color and the next color and so on. And then I go back to the first and I continue building around that circle. This is how I do backgrounds as well. I focus on one spot at a time, usually. Sometimes I'll take like a large stamp and fill up my whole background and then come in and do the medium stamp next and then the small stamp filling in. So this is another, if you're a newer card maker, practice makes perfect, and actually perfect isn't a thing in card making since it's a handcraft. So practice on scratch paper, get the hang of it, and you'll be good to go. When you're done stamping inside the circle, just don't forget to erase the pencil line. And then I'm adding this into my MISTI stamping tool, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment in Midnight. And then I'm going to add a little accent. I thought the coconut with the umbrella and the straw would be a really cute accent for this. So Sending You Sunshine. I'm adding some foam tape to the coconut, and we'll just pop that up off the card. And then the umbrella and the straw will just tuck behind the coconut. The straw is another image that I die cut first and then stamped on top. I may have had to stamp it once or twice to get it right, but that straw, you can go either way. Stamp first and then die cut, or die cut and then stamp, whatever you find easiest. But this video just included the tips that work for me, and I would love for you to share in the comments how you like to stamp with die cuts and what you find best. Then I added a few Crater Lake sequins, and that finished off this card. So here is a look at the 4 cards I made in this video. I can't wait to see what you create. What is your favorite image from all of the images that I showed you? I don't know. I think the Aloha makes me pretty excited. The hibiscus makes me excited too, and the flamingo, and that large geometric border. I love them all. So yeah. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today while I create these fun cards. I hope you are inspired and you will share with us on social media what you are creating as well. I will see you again next time. I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already, and have a great day.